So I'm open up to Module 4, and we will be covering chapters 7 and 8 in this module, which is all about liking, love, and close relationships, and then social influence. So here's your to-do list for this module with due dates and readings listed. The chapter objectives for chapter 7. So again, these can be used to help you study for the test, to know kind of what to cover. I would match up the lecture slides with the book and what you're reading in the book, and just make sure you're bridging any gaps and making sure that you're covering each one of these objectives as you're going through the readings. So chapter 7 is really just looking at how we form relationships with other people. So first, what kinds of variables affect who we're attracted to, and that can be friendship-wise or romantic relationship-wise. But what kinds of attributes do we seek out in other people and other people with us? What role do stereotypes play when we have an idea about people? How does that affect then who we come in contact with, or who we gravitate towards? We'll look at some different hypotheses on attraction and looking at what types of features in a person tend to draw us to them. There's a matching hypothesis, repulsion hypothesis. These are just different theories to say why we choose to do what we do, balance theory, and so forth. We'll also look at different kinds of relationships, and here's where a good deal of attachment research goes into this. Some developmental psych, pulling from developmental psych, looking at attachment styles with parents and how that really sets the stage for later relationships with romantic others. A lot of how we deal with our later life partners stems from our early life relationships with our parents. So we'll look at different styles of love in a romantic relationship, particularly Sternberg's triangular model of love. And he's put together a bunch of different combinations of what different types of love look like, which ones are good, which ones are no good, which ones stand the test of time, and which ones do not. It's really interesting, great research, and he's conducted research with hundreds and hundreds of couples to come to the conclusions he has in his model. We'll also look at the role of jealousy and threat and the stability of relationships, as well as what men and women seek out in other partners. We'll kind of shift gears a little bit as we turn into chapter 8. Chapter 8 is all about social influence, and this is actually how social psychology got its start. We look at some of the heavy hitters in the field when we talk about conformity, compliance, and obedience. Those are three kind of key areas in social psychology that really started in the early 1950s. And they all hinge upon the norms of our culture. So we'll first explore norms. We'll look at what conformity is. Solomon Asch is the big name there with his conformity research. I've included a lot of videos about his studies. We'll look at what draws people to others. How do we make decisions when other people are around us? How does that affect our decision making? And this is all the area of social influence. We are influenced by people, and so we don't ever really make decisions in a bubble. We take into consideration the norms of society, so we'll look at various norms, as well as social and informational social influence, and we'll look at how norms have changed over time. We'll move into the compliance research. Now, this is the big area of Milgram, Stanley Milgram, and his famous shock studies, but we'll look at, what factors are present when we comply with someone else's order. When we are given an order to do something, when is it that we're more likely to comply? What factors have to be present? Does it matter what kind of person it is when it comes to compliance? So I have some videos on that as well. And then obviously obedience, right? So looking at what is destructive obedience, right? Because obedience is good. We obey our parents, we obey teachers. These are good things for the harmony of society, but it can go bad when the person we're obeying is not a good person, is not in their right mind, or has taken their power to abuse situations, right? Has become abusive. When we think of like Hitler, we think of Saddam Hussein and other dictators who have killed thousands of people and had people under them carry out their orders to do such heinous kinds of crimes. Why did people obey? Why didn't anyone object? And that's destructive obedience. However, we obey even slight authority, somebody who isn't holding a gun to our head, yet telling us to do something we don't agree with. Sometimes we'll obey just because of who they are or the situation. So that's really what the research is looking at there, and we'll spend a good amount of time in that area for Chapter 8. Okay, so here are your lecture slides that go along with the readings, and your articles this week that go along with the readings as well. And then I've got a bunch of different videos for you. I'm going to try to get the thumbnail video so you can just click right on it, but for now I've got the links. What happens when we break a social norm? It's a really great short video here about the Free Hugs campaign. This is a little bit longer video about emotional branding, looking at the effects of compliance and persuasion in marketing. We've got Solomon Asch's original conformity experiment, only 4 minutes. I've got a group think and conformity video from the Khan Academy here. You'll want to watch really the first half that covers conformity, and the second half we're going to kind of revisit when we get to groups and individuals later in our last chapter. And then I have the modern day Milgram study. This was a remake of Milgram's original research done by Jerry Berger. And it will show you what differences were done to make the study more ethical, but then also what were the results. And Jerry Berger's study involved women. The original Milgram study did not, so some differences there to be looking at. And then lastly, I have a short clip on the Abu Ghraib prison atrocity, and this is destructive obedience. This is an example of obedience gone bad. Okay. So your discussion for this module revolves around the chapter readings as well as the article. I've noticed that some of you are only citing the articles. You need to also be integrating in concepts and discussion from the chapter. I mean, the chapter's loaded with material that maps right onto these readings. Okay, so one reading you're looking at attractiveness and media images, specifically looking at the contrast effect. So you'll want to make sure you understand the contrast effect as described in the article as well as in your chapter. And then the second article deals with Milgram's study. So make sure you read over that article of his original study and then watch the videos. Okay, so you definitely want to watch Jerry Berger's remake of the Milgram study. And then you'll be taking exam 4, which covers chapters 7 and 8. And that wraps up this module. If you have any questions, please let me know. via email.